One of the things that I'm really interested in is the idea of Africa and its connection to imagination, whether we're talking about on the narrative side, and that's through literature, through art, through basically cultural expression, but also more increasingly, it's about how do you work to change how Africa is imagined in other spaces. When you look at the way the continent is portrayed, there's a long history of a very negative perception of the continent. And in recent years, what you find is that that negative impression still exists, but it's changing as there are more channels for people from the continent and the diaspora to actually express who they are and the way that lives are lived in real time. For the last 15 years, you could say that there's been internationally a renewed focus on African writers and African writing, but very separate from the post-colonial narratives that people have traditionally associated with the dawn of modern African literature. Now you have a set of people who are diasporic and on the continent whose concerns are totally different. You're writing to show the world a different kind of existence. That leads to very different kinds of literature. It's everything from people writing on LGBTQ issues to, the flourishing of African sci-fi or futurism. I find that to be really fascinating and the source of a lot of creative collaboration and tension, because that comes into conflict with people's impressions of the continent as a place for Ebola and conflict and famine and violence. And those things are there. No one is trying to deny their existence, but they're not the entirety of who we are as a people or in our various countries and communities. And it's important, I think, to create environments where people can actually hear alternative understandings of how people even interact with the challenges that we face. It's only when you have that additional perspective, that additional understanding that isn't necessarily mediated through Western stereotypes, that you really begin to understand how you can interact productively with this vast environment and the multiplicities of identities that you meet there.